maybe Scott, you could talk a little bit about how the artwork was created for the Reflections contract.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Like Tim Shell mentioned, we needed to raise funds just to uh, deviate these remaining corruptions or finish off the deviations to progress the story. So it was kind of on us to find a way to raise the funds. So back when we sent the very first message with the reflected corruption, an idea with that was to kind of like make our own community version. And we shelved it because we didn't want to mess with what he was doing. But now that we needed to raise funds, we kind of just resurrected that idea. So so when you deviate a corruption, like they said, it turns into a piece of art. It stops evolving, and it's kind of disappointing if you only have one corruption and you kind of like have got a game over piece now, and you're not really playing with everyone. So our idea was to take that game over piece or bookmark and convert it back into like an actual piece again that's growing and evolving like the other pieces, like the other core corruption pieces. So what we did was we came up with 10 different words. There's 10 phrases in the corruptions, like underworld. I don't remember all of them. Corruption. They're all 10-letter words, and there's 10 of them. So we came up with 10 new words, and we basically used the same corruptions metadata renderer contract, but we changed out the words, and we put a little CSS to flip the image horizontally, and then the final change was that we swapped the background and foreground colors. So it looks like kind of a mirrored corruption, and the colors are flipped, so it's much brighter and vibrant, and they came out pretty great. And they actually refer to the original corruption that you deviated from, so its insight level is what your actual corruption
Very
is,
cool.
like under the hood, which is kind of fun.
So it's like a real tour de force of like on-chain composability. I feel this is the part, like for a while the meme about on-chain was permanence, but actually the meme about on-chain is composability. And so you're deploying contracts that are dependent on data in other contracts that's live, that depends on actions that are taken on that other contract. And you're generating the visual by applying techniques that make sense to an on-chain SVG in order to create a new on-chain SVG that is a derivative.
Yeah, and this is, if you've been following along with Dom's projects, you kind of see the evolution of what he's thinking. And Loot was the first like extendable NFT, I think, to many people. I'm sure there may have been others in the past, but that was kind of the big one that
Loot is an L1. Loot really is like positioned as an L1, but in the guise of a very specific niche kind of NFT.
Yeah.
But do you know actually on the Loot lore, like, was Loot something that he kind of did in the same way that Corruptions was to A-Quest? Was Loot the same thing to like Supdrive or something for like on-chain SVG image processing?
What is...
I just mean like, was Dom just like playing around in his route to do Supdrive and Loot came out of that? That was kind of, I felt maybe that was the case. I don't know. Maybe Tim Shell knows.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Dom, but I can say that I can at least say that Loot has been in Dom's mind and his heart for a long time.
Okay.
And there's a lot of thought and a lot of intentionality and a lot of really careful detail in the Loot world. We probably should do a Twitter Spaces on Loot, to be honest. It's been quite a while since we did one. But yeah, Loot, I think Loot is its own universe.
You're right, because the level of, we won't get into it too much, but the like having the data to be available for Genesis adventures to be created. Honestly, it shocked me that there was that much thought put into it. Just like,
oh man,
I was
and
like,
so
are you serious?
If you want to have a sidebar on Loot for anybody else, go to loot.foundation and it's going to blow your mind.
All right, awesome. We're going to do that after the show. Okay, so I guess Scott or Shrews, you want to pick it up from there?
I'll just finish off by saying, so I mentioned Loot because it kind of was this idea of like your NFT can have an API. And so this is like a new version of that. Now the actual visuals are changing too. And so we're all in this headspace, like us developers that are like interested in smart contracts and interested in NFTs. We want to kind of push on what Dom's doing and not do something just really simple. We want to acknowledge what he's doing. So being able to use the original deviations to create our reflections and everything, it was really just like massive respect to Dom and everything he's done, and showing that because he opened up these endpoints, we're able to build on it more, just like everyone did with Loot. So it's been really fun. Yeah,
awesome. I was saying it earlier in the year, but like I think it got like 1 like. I was like, Dom is my favorite artist. Just like so good. Such a vibe through all the work he's doing.
Yeah, and I think just like framing this as art, it's important to keep that in mind. And he keeps pushing out these deviations. They are like one-of-one artworks that he's doing. Well, not one-of-one. They can be 64 of each. And he even pushed it even further, which we'll get to in a minute, where he did a full-on like full-color art piece, which is really cool. So it's definitely art in code and in the traditional sense.
We've seen that kind of experimentation. Also, like Blitmaps did there was like a larger image, I think, that was minted at some point. Like experimentation around derivatives around the primary collection has been also a motif through a lot of his work.
Yeah, and obviously Blitmap was pure art, and then like modified community modified art. So
but even that one, it was a huge cast of people creating the originals, and then of course even more collector involvement in the minting of the subsequent of the children or siblings. Was it siblings? Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I think there were 17 original Blitmap artists, maybe 16, and then they did 100 original works, and then the community remixed the colors into 1,700 Blitmap NFTs.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I don't know what's next in the story. So I don't know what's next in the story of Corruptons. Where were we? We did Reflections. The DAO has like discovered itself as existing and has a little bit of money in order to do the deviations of the 8 that it received. Was that the goal?
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Okay.
We had to go buy them.
Oh, I had to go buy them. Okay.
Yeah. So the amount of ETH that we needed to raise was 8 times whatever essentially the floor price at that point in time was. So I think we ultimately ended up spending like 4.5 ETH on just buying undeviated corruptions from the floor on OpenSea. Once we had those in our Gnosis, we then deviated each of them one at a time. So Dom in his contract basically had reserved these last 8 just for the community multi-sig address to deviate.
And so how many reflections are there total? Or I guess that requires math. What is it? It's the whole collection.
Yeah, I think there's 576. There's 64 times, well, deviations. There's the original rows of 64, and then 64 times 8 is 512. So combined,
okay, good. So
576 of the deviations, and then the reflections are one-to-one mapped to those. They haven't all been minted, and if anybody wants a reflection, grab a deviation and grab a reflection. There's no real utility other than just the beauty of the art, plus also pop in some ETH into this community DAO. And through the community DAO, we're all being creative and thinking, and eventually probably going to build